This is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Thursday, February 10, 2022, and it is 1:31 p.m. And let me do as a first order of business, a call to order and a roll call. Linda Escobedo.
I'm here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rich Feely.
Here.
Carrie LaFleur. We're doing roll call. Carrie LaFleur.
Here.
Here. Great. Thank you. And Keith Bergman here. So we are all five here. And also on the call, Lois Suarez. So welcome to the call. Next item, approval of minutes. I have none today. They are in progress. Here they are. I hope to have them completed in time for our next meeting, and we'll get those out before the meeting. Next item, I think the main event is further discussion of developing proposed guidelines for the trust for select board approval. And just a couple of things to get started. First, thank you to Rich Feely for being our collector of comments and drafter of each iteration of the guidelines, and thanks as well to members for their input. And what our schedule is going ahead, we have a date now for March 7th with the select board to discuss our proposed guidelines. I had reached out, as we had discussed at our last meeting, I reached out to select board chair Terry Ackerman to just brief her on where we were. It looks like we'll probably get them done. We have a meeting scheduled for a week from today, the February 17th, would likely have them done by then, if not before. And when could the select board give us time on their agenda this month? And it's a busy month, as Linda had shared with us. So we do have a date now for Monday, March 7th, the select board meeting that evening. We also will then have a meeting with the finance committee later in March, the Thursday evening, March 24th, to review our regulations with them at their request. So why don't I just turn it over to Rich to just give us an update on where we are, and if you'd like to walk us through, we can, and I'm prepared to put up our latest draft for screen sharing if anyone needs that as a tool.
Well, I don't think the structure is what we discussed. There's a background of why we got there, the purpose of the document, the policy goals, which reflect 3 Concord Town documents, the types of projects, qualifying projects to which the trust could put money, and criteria for choosing, essentially in the event that there are multiple opportunities. Substantively, I think this is all pretty much what we discussed last week. And I was able to incorporate everybody's comments with pretty much no further, I didn't reject or change anybody's comments except for kind of grammatical reasons. There were 2 issues that were flagged. One, Linda had flagged around I noted it in my email, the use of private amongst one of the qualifying projects. And there was a question in the reference to the statewide legislation, which I think somebody had noted as being subsequent to the filing of the HRP. There have been transfer fee bills in the legislature for the last couple of legislatures, as far as I know. So it's true that the Comerford-Connolly bill, which is the one that's under active consideration, was filed in this legislature, but there were predecessor transfer fee bills. So I just took out that, subsequent, but I don't have any problem if people feel strongly it should go back in. So, Linda, other than your issue and that one, I didn't see any. I mean, usually when you do these things, people want different things, but I didn't see anything in any of the comments that was other than clarification or more precise wording. There were no mutually exclusive edits that I saw.
Would it be useful to, do we want to take up Linda's issue now, or would it be useful to, if we just maybe went to the top of the document and went down and just sort of looked at it as a group? Any thoughts on how to best use our time?
I don't know, my react, I mean, if people have an issue with the integrated document, maybe other than the ones I flagged, we should bring it up. Unless Carrie needs us to go through it, I would say we should just go to people's individual issues and resolve them, and then I can go to one final version.
Yeah.
But that, Keith, you're the chair, so that's up to you.
Yeah, I think what I might do, I'm going to put, see if, number one, I'll see if the screen sharing works. Can you see that? Can you see?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Works.
Let me see if I can make it a little bigger. Okay. This is the format of the document. As Rich said, it begins with a background statement. We've labeled it interim guidelines for use of our funds, providing a background of how we got here, sort of explaining ourselves.
And there's an extra space after the word Concord in the first line.
Okay. Got it.
Let's see, to provide, which by going like this, it's now fixed. Okay.
Yay.
All right.
And the same is true after town meeting, Haran ATM.
On the second line.
Oh, okay. And I see it on the
There you
fifth
go.
or sixth line there. There.
And there's one there too.
Okay. Okay. Next paragraph, the 2020 town meeting adopted the bylaw. Purpose of the bylaw, thought it was be useful to, restate what it is, to preserve and create affordable housing to benefit low and moderate income households, and for funding community housing, because we get later into some information about what are low and moderate income households and CPA funding. All right, next paragraph talks about the authority to adopt guidelines subject to select board approval. A recap that the town meeting's been funding $500,000 for the last 3 years, and we've requested funding for the coming year. Oh, purpose of the document.
Another space there.
Right.
See it?
Yep. The ATM in 2020 adopted the bylaw. This document's intended to provide interim guidelines at the current funding level. The idea is that we're identifying that when we get the long-term dedicated funding sources, that's sort of the long term, and in the short term, which these interim guidelines are in place for, we're looking for
I don't understand why final approval should be in red.
No, that was just because it was an issue because it had final state approval. And if the general authorizing legislation passed, then a town can do it only with the action of the decision-making body of the town. In other words, I think we might have to go back to town meeting, but we don't need the state to approve the town's transfer fee.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
just to flag it. It should come out.
Yeah, I think what we might want to do on this refers to the when there are reliable funding sources, which would in the first instance need to be passed by the state legislature, either in approving our Concord's one or more of Concord's home rule petitions, or in adopting a statewide bill. And so that would be at some level a state action. But then in all cases, there appears to be local actions that would also be required. Might be worth either sticking with language that says final approval, or to talk about state and local approval, because it's I had to go back and refresh my memory of the process. But when the when one of our home rule petitions is adopted, I'm sorry, if it's approved by the legislature, I think in both cases it requires acceptance at an annual town meeting. And that's
it may require a vote as well. I mean, that's definitely true of the HRP. I think if the Comerford-Connolly bill passes, the select board could adopt it. But
yeah, that's an excellent point, because I don't find that the answer in the statewide bill. It doesn't say who adopts it. It says if the city or town adopts it, and so that to me would mean the town is town meeting. It's not it. But I went looking specific, because this issue had been flagged, I went looking for the answer to how do you adopt the statewide bill locally, and the bill itself doesn't say.
We
So
could
it's
probably easily finesse this just by putting in final approvals.
Yeah.
With just plural and leave it at
Yeah.
that. It's also
Right.
clear that as far as the building permit surcharge, it will need to go back to town meeting to actually adopt what the surcharges are.
Right.
Because
Right. Yeah, the bill,
that
that's a good point, Mike, because the building permit surcharge language, if that home rule petition passes, it authorizes the town to adopt by bylaw the building permit surcharge. So that would be going back to town meeting. What I think we ought to be aware of, I think both of them refer to annual town meetings, which means that if something gets passed, let's say, even if it gets passed between now and next month, which is not going to happen very likely, you'd still have to wait a year in order to bring it to a quote unquote annual town meeting in Concord.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it could be the case if the select board felt strongly enough that we could stick a special town meeting inside the annual town meeting in May.
Yeah.
We've certainly done that before.
Yeah. So,
or if we had a special town meeting in the fall.
yeah, the problem is the way the home rule petitions are written, they specifically say they're adopted by Concord by the annual town meeting, not a special. And I'm not sure why the petitions were written that way, but that's what they say. But just so that we're aware, there are even ways to fix that, including the select board could, request. I mean, I've worked with pieces of special legislation where there's wording changes that a select board has to sign off on, and then it goes back to the legislature to adopt final language. If that's a big issue for us, we might want to, and it looks like it's in danger of, the home rule petitions are actually in danger of passing. And you don't want to have to wait until May of 2023 to be able to adopt them. It might be something that would be worth getting a language change to say an annual or special town meeting in the final version of the home rule petition. But just something to flag. In the meantime, though, adding an S right here, final approvals, I think will.
And getting rid of the red, obviously.
Yeah, we will take the red out. Okay.
Keith, since you said that's an issue to flag,
Yeah.
don't lose it, because I think it should, we should discuss that further later.
Sure.
Yeah. And then at the bottom of the next paragraph, beginning the following, there's 2 periods after 23.
Okay. I thought I got all of those, but I obviously.
Oh, there it is. Okay, right.
And there's an extra space after the word approved.
All right, we'll take that out as well. And we're going to take the bold off of current use.
I would.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. All right, so I'm just writing myself a note about the annual or special in the home rule petitions if need be. Okay. Next, we're down to. Oh, are we just trying to? I'm just going to take a peek and see who else is on the call. We'd had Marcia here before. I don't think she's here this time, but a question that I have is looking at this housing production plan anticipated to be updated, and is this our understanding of the current schedule now, or approved
Yes.
in late 2022 or early?
I think that's the latest,
Okay,
unless Carrie has some more updated information, but that's what I have.
okay. All right, very good. Nothing to worry about there, just so long as building permits get issued for Junction Village. So, policy goals.
So the one thing I didn't have a chance to check is whether or not it's 21 or 22 Community Preservation Committee funding priorities.
Yeah, what was listed was 2021 in the document on their document online. I don't know if they.
I know.
Fiscal
And
2022 or.
They're updated every year.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
this
I
is
had
the
this,
most
I had
current
the
one.
same dilemma though, because what was online and what they usually do. I mean, usually by now it reads 22. But
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was because they invite applications in
2021.
October or September of 2021.
You could just drop 2021 and just put the Community Preservation Committee funding priorities and project application guidelines. You know, 'cause
Or put
Or put most recent.
current,
Yeah, I guess I'd make the suggestion, what if we put 2021 and then just gratuitously add in 2022?
fine with me, and then put a period at the end of that sentence.
Okay,
I think they typically reference their work by town meeting year versus fiscal year, so that may be why they still have 2021.
yeah,
Well, no, I think, yeah, because they start their process in 2021, even though it finalizes in the next calendar year.
yeah. I guess what we could do, I suppose we could say the community preservation, the guideline, application guidelines for the we could gratuitously put in for the 2022 annual town meeting. I think that would accurately describe what it is, even if they don't.
But if
Maybe.
these interim guidelines, well, stand beyond
remember this, sorry, Linda, this is going to be a policy that we're going to use. I don't think we want any date in there because
Yeah.
in 2025, we don't want to be using the 2021, 2022 community preservation guidelines. So I would just put the current.
Yeah, I agree.
Current
with
or most recent, one or the other. Yeah, I think that's better. I mean, because we may be operating with these for
a
you know,
while.
Okay, so
until we get a continuing source, which might be this year, it might be 3 years.
okay, so do we want to take do we want to put a modifier?
How
the
about just
title.
that?
Current is fine.
I think it needs neither.
Oh,
Just
okay,
leave it like it is.
okay.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. And we're, as we've already said, these interim goals, well, let's talk this through for a minute. On the Concord housing production plan, which we're citing the current one, or the one that's most recently expired, 2015. And it would be our intent, I guess I'm asking the question, it would be our intent to amend these once the housing production plan is updated in 2022 or 2023. So just so we're aware of that. Okay. Qualifying projects.
Again, I would unbold selection criteria.
Okay.
But I would, and also in the bullet points, the first bullet point has a period, which I would eliminate and put a period at the end of the last one. Meets Concord sustainability. Oh, that's not it.
Yeah, the last one being
That one.
one on the next page. Okay.
And then there's an extra space in
Yep.
renovating. Yeah, you got it. And
And then one after that. Word defines them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so can you scroll back up?
Yeah, I'll
please?
scroll back up and see where we are. Okay.
So I guess one question I had, going back, looking at this, is whether or not we wanted the first bullet to be the first bullet.
I sort of put it there because it's the first expenditure that the trust per se is making. And because one could defend it as saying, well, if we have a chance to get land, we're not going to get that again. But, I don't feel strongly if others feel it should go elsewhere. But I think we've got to make clear it does. I mean, it's got to be in here somewhere.
Yeah,
But if
definitely. Yeah,
people
definitely.
want to, other than the fact that I put land first because that's the first thing we've done, I don't feel strongly about the order of things here.
Area wide, up above in the first paragraph, area wide doesn't come up in a spell check. But
should be hyphenated.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's one word in the HUD regs. Area wide is one
Right.
word, and with no hyphen.
Hmm.
AMI, or
I see.
if not, I guess it would be AW.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a term. It's a term. term of art, or it's jargon, actually, is what.
Yeah.
What I should say.
So my lens on this section and the next section. Oh, by the way, before I move on.
Yeah.
Mike, why are you unbolding the selection criteria? Mike?
Can't hear you, Mike.
Sorry, it just refers to a section down below. I suppose that's why it's bolded. It could say that way. That doesn't matter that much.
I was just thinking it was.
Yeah, I wonder if it helps read the document if we
Yeah.
put it in like where,
Yeah,
if
I
there's
think-
some section where, if in a prior section we're describing a further section
Yeah,
down
I agree
below,
with Linda.
maybe that. So we'll put the bold back in.
So my lens for these next two sections, what trying in my mind, trying to review each of the conversations we had with each of the housing groups. And then saying, okay, thinking about the range of projects that they are currently involved in or could be involved in based on their conversations with us in the near future. And saying, would each of those housing groups have the opportunities to step up and at least request the funds? So that, and I think with some of the edits that people have provided here, hopefully we could now say yes to each of the housing groups and still be consistent with the source documents that we've referenced as the basis for our policy goals.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. I know some of the input we got, I think it was Liz Rust brought up the importance of us being able to handle, pre-development soft costs to get things going, which actually is quite a good thing for us to be able to do in the category of not having, for others not having to wait to town meeting. They can come to us and get some, quick preliminary funding that can help a project either go forward or get ruled out. Scroll up a little bit here.
So to that end, on the second bullet on the page you're now showing,
Yeah.
I added the word unit, or suggested adding the word unit, so that it wasn't just implying home ownership. And
Yeah, you could say housing unit. It certainly is that. That applies to any.
Yeah.
It was the renovation one, I assume, and I put unit in there.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
One of the nomenclature challenges we're having, we've chosen not to get hung up on, I guess I would say, is that the Affordable Housing Funding Study Group originally recommended the nomenclature home to refer to all instead of housing units, so that people could begin to relate better, to whether it's a rental unit or a home ownership unit. All of them are providing homes. So there was a big deal made about that period of time. And so the way I've, and others may have better suggestions, but I think we've done a good job of trying to express what we need to express in terms of either the criteria or the qualifying projects. But what I try to do is have a blend of that terminology, and then when it's absolutely specific, necessary to be specific about whether it's home ownership or rental unit, I incorporate the word unit. So I think we're covered here, I guess is my
Yeah.
point.
That's a good point. Yeah, and there's a certain impersonality of the term unit. I'm thinking of parental units on an old Saturday Night Live sketch, but home. The term home that was the language that was used that got these measures through the 2019 town meeting. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Next is, shall I go on to the selection criteria next?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Linda, this was the substantive issue you raised around the term privately owned units. And, there's part of me that says we almost, since we've defined qualifying projects above to include, owned by nonprofit, private or public, maybe we just take it out or say the subsidy of units to affordable levels if such opportunities are only available. But I don't know what your particular concerns were there.
So which one are we specifically talking about here?
It's in the first paragraph where it says this time priority was given to expenditures, purchase of land or housing units, construction, renovation, or the subsidy to affordable levels if such opportunities are only available for a short period of time. Yeah. In other words, if a developer came to us and said, gee, if you gave us $50,000, we could take these units down to 80% or whatever. That's the kind of thing that we would want to be able to do before those went on the market. But, I don't know whether you were concerned about the word privately or
what. Sorry, I was working on this yesterday afternoon and I don't know where what I was.
Say again, why the phrase, if such opportunities are only available for a short period of time? Why?
Well, that was to put a priority on things that needed a rapid response. Assabet Bluff's a good example. If we hadn't found a way to get the money from us and CPA in the private sector, it would have passed by before what could have gotten to town meeting for an appropriation. So that's why but it's in some ways it's a bit redundant.
Yeah, because we've
said above waiting on the town's annual budget process. So, I don't feel strongly if we want to take it out. That may even, it's kind of
it may raise more, maybe just confusing because if you just took out, you're talking about taking out that last section. Yeah.
Yes. So if we take out what's highlighted, if such opportunities, you want to take that out?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. It's out. Great. Let me scroll down.
And this whole set of bullets all has semicolons after them, and to be consistent, we want to get rid of all of those and then put a period at the end of the last one, goals.
All right, Mike, whose style manual are you using?
My own.
This in New York Times.
Available on Amazon for $9.95.
Okay.
No autographed copies will be made available though.
Yeah, I don't think it's in Strunk and White.
Yeah, you could put commas after all of them or semicolons. It doesn't matter. You just need to be consistent.
Be consistent.
Gotcha.
And do we put an or on the end of the penultimate one or not? I just took or out, but
We
That
have
was
not,
somebody's addition, which I incorporated. I mean,
we have not done that in the past.
elsewhere, I would take it out.
yeah, I'll take it out. Okay.
I would take it out.
Right. Okay. Any other edits to this section? And there was no unresolved. I'm going to take the note out here.
Yeah, right.
Delete.
We've had that discussion.
Yeah, okay. Right. All right. So I think we're at the end of the document.
I put your table of,
Oh, that's right, too. Yeah, let's go through.
But-
Yeah, let's just, I felt strongly that we need to have some way that we alert people to the fact that there are different definitions of low and moderate income that are out there, and some of them and in putting this table together, well, let me back up. I had originally thought about could I summarize this information in a sentence or a paragraph, and I decided I couldn't. And the best I could do was to propose language up above that said, refer to the table below for citations for low and moderate income. But I think that it's useful for all of us and anyone looking at our funding, be aware that there are a bunch of definitions out there. And importantly, as the Mass Housing Partnership advises all municipal affordable housing trusts, we need to keep track of what the requirements of particular funding sources are and account for those separately. And
in some cases, we may be using multiple sources.
Right, indeed, we may be looking at multiple sources. Some of them, some of the programs and funding sources that we've identified have specific definitions for low and moderate income, and frankly, some don't. Community preservation funds do. That's 80% for low and 100% of AMI for moderate. We got in here that what DHCD counts on your affordable housing inventory, which is units that are at 80% of AMI if they're ownership. If it's rental, then 25% of if 25% of the total units in the rental development are at 80% of AMI, then all the units, including those above 80%, get counted. Let's see, the MHP pointed me to the Mass Affordable Housing Trust as one statutory program which has a definition of 110% of AMI as moderate income. So I wanted to include that in here. In the Concord zoning bylaw currently, the Section 10 planned residential development has definitions, although not definitions of low income, but they have definitions which appear to be fall in the category of what moderate income would be, with a starter price housing so-called being less than 110% of AMI, and the moderate priced housing being less than 150% of AMI. So that's been referred to anecdotally as Concord moderate housing. It's a thing, it exists. The town's zoning bylaw was approved by the Attorney General when it took effect. So presumably at some point, we may get funding requests for something that comes in this category, and whether we can use funds at our disposal for this, for up to 150%. Well, it's at some point be a question of what's the funding source. And if community preservation funds end up being a funding source for a project, we couldn't do it. But if there were other funds with a higher percentage limit, we could. And I mention that because if we go but before we get there, I wanted to mention ARPA. ARPA funding. Let me find here that. Something that we've talked about recently. I had to look it up. I followed the trail of breadcrumbs that was left from the final references that are in the final rule, and where do they point you. And I saw, for example, that the final Treasury rule on ARPA funds says Treasury will presume that any projects, read off this version, will presume that any projects that would be eligible for funding under either the National Housing Trust Fund or the Home Investment Partnerships Program are eligible uses of the ARPA state and local recovery funds. And for the case of the home program, they provide that for rental housing, 90% of any units have to be below 60% of AMI. The remainder can be below 80%. And for home ownership, all units can be below 80% of AMI. Now, what I want to point out on this in particular is that's if the ARPA funds must strictly adhere to ARPA, the ARPA definitions of affordable housing. What it doesn't answer is the question of what if ARPA funds were be made available for affordable housing under the general category of governmental functions, which are allowed for lost revenue. With the and I don't know what the answer to that is. It could be a policy question as much as anything else, but I thought where we're on record as a trust of saying that if the select board deposits ARPA funds in the trust, that we would use those for ARPA eligible affordable housing expenses. And I'm just putting up on the board here that would mean strictly adhering to what ARPA says affordable housing is, would mean 60 to 80% for rental and 80% for ownership.
So, thanks for wading through all of this. It's so complicated. My hesitation here is, in terms of limiting us to the 60 or 80, is that, there are some, and again, you raise a really interesting point in terms of if we just use the general funds, are we under the same restrictions in terms of policy definition? But, there are sections that clearly speak to equity issues and I thought workforce housing. Not necessarily in this section. So.
Yeah, and indeed, the rules go to great lengths to say that using ARPA funds to acquire units and not just do rental subsidies is a valid purpose, is a valid thing that you can, for example, that you can do.
And we also got the rule, or at least some assurance that land acquisition
Right,
was
that's
allowed.
right. Yeah,
So for that not to appear in this chart.
yeah, it may, yeah, and that's why I wanted to flag it here. I for one would be comfortable with, modifying what this says here, for moderate income. It could be, to say something about if, well, I guess what I'm getting at is that if the funds are in the lost revenue category, are simply as, being deposited in the trust in the category of general government purposes coming from lost revenue, that would seem to provide greater flexibility. But it's certainly something that, it's gonna, that would have to be answered by, the town council, or later by an auditor or something. So that, and I'm not sure what guidelines we even know are in place now. My strong sense is that there are a lot of communities that are dealing with this very issue right now. Anyone who's looking, anyone who falls into the 10 million, below 10 million category, and can use their ARPA funds for any governmental purpose,
Right.
which is where we are, which is where Concord is. Maybe you'd want to give yourselves more flexibility, give ourselves more.
And maybe we need to go back and look at all that material you sent, the correspondence from MAPC
Yeah.
On this issue as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, that.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I wonder if Carrie has any specific thoughts on this, or what would make you feel least uncomfortable?
So interesting, before this meeting, I was on with the chair of the select board, and we were talking about ARPA in terms of lost revenue. And I don't like using the lost revenue avenue outside of a budget process. Like I think if we were talking about lost revenue in the context of a budget process and trying to balance a budget, it makes more sense to me than to call money lost revenue, but we don't have an appropriation for it. It falls to free cash, and then we're sort of circumventing some of the, or it feels like we're circumventing some of the requirements of ARPA. So in this case, we would be, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming trying to find housing opportunities at 80% of median income is probably difficult. That's probably a really difficult target, because we just won't, it would be hard to find somebody who meets that requirement to be able to afford any type of housing in town. Is that fair or not fair?
Or you'd have to supplement with subsidies. You could get down there, but you'd have to subsidize it more.
Right. So it's
Right, and just, if I could, Carrie, just on
Sure.
part of that the Assabet River Bluff is project we've said is, we have said 5 affordable units, which and it's funded by community housing. So even as I'm thinking about it now, if it's 5, the difference is if in order to get counted, they either have to be low income 80% and counted on the SHI. If they're ownership units, they have to be 80%. And if they are rental units, then, and it's with CPA funding, then it's going to be at least a quarter of those units would have to be at 80%, and the rest could be 80, or they could be up to 100%. So I guess we haven't quite, but it's a real issue that we will be dealing with 80% to some degree for the things that we do, if we want to count units on subsidized housing inventory.
So
I think it's clearly the intent with Assabet that we be able to count all 5 of those units. I guess my question is, and Carrie's obviously, I think, questioning this, whether it would be better to, take the ARPA money and then appropriate 500,000 from free cash. That doesn't seem to me to be an end run particularly. We had extra expenditures, we had lost revenue, et cetera, during COVID. We're making that up, and then, to come back and say, okay, now we've got enough free cash for the other purposes, the bond stabilization fund, and, vote 500,000 for affordable housing, then we would, at least only be bound by the CPA rules for Assabet Bluff.
I think this is something that is going to need to be figured out fairly quickly, because if you want to go the lost revenue route, it's going to end up needing a town meeting appropriation, because it's going to be declared lost revenue. It's going to come into this budget year, and then it's going to be part of free cash. So it's going to have to be a free cash appropriation at town meeting, and the warrant article is set up to accommodate that.
Yep.
But we're going to need to know that as we get ready for the public hearing process.
Yeah, you've got to know how much free cash you've got, right? Understood.
I have a question though. What is there? So are you saying that there's something internally about Concord's processes that require use of ARPA funds to go to town meeting?
No, ARPA is a grant, and it's coming to the town without requiring further appropriation. But if you're going to call it lost revenue, we're going to take it into the budget as lost revenue. And then if you want to, I'm not really seeing a mechanism to call it lost revenue and directly apply it to a project.
No, I think you're right, Carrie. We'd have to appropriate it at town meeting if we did that.
I don't
Either
follow.
goes directly into the trust with these limitations, or it goes into the budget, and then town meeting has to appropriate the $500,000.
Yeah, I'm not sure I follow that at all. That
Okay.
it's the ARPA. You're saying that there's an ARPA. The way ARPA defines lost revenue is that requires the legislative body instead of the executive at the local level to approve it.
If it's lost revenue, this is something that we're struggling with a little bit and trying to talk it through. But if it's lost revenue it's money that we would have otherwise collected, but for the pandemic. Money that would have required an appropriation.
I mean, we've got to treat it just like tax revenue or hotel taxes or any of your other revenue sources, and it has to flow through the budget, right?
I'm happy to look at it further, but I'm having a little trouble seeing how you can call it lost revenue and then just directly direct it to another expense.
Yeah, how,
Did
has,
did we in the last fiscal year actually underperform revenue wise?
Yes,
So it would seem certain to me that we could add that amount, whatever the underperformance was.
right, under the ruling from last month, we can call all 5.6 million lost revenue.
right, but is DOR requiring you then to go to town meeting to spend lost revenue? And I don't mean you, I mean all 350
Right.
cities and towns have to go to their legislative bodies that to spend a grant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to follow up with them on this question, because maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but lost revenue to support a budget. But we balanced our budget without any using this revenue. And so if we're going to call it lost revenue now, after we've set the tax rate, it just comes into the budget and it's revenue surplus.
And I can't automatically become free cash.
Right, because I don't know, I don't have, yeah, I guess if you call it lost revenue, it goes from being a grant to a local receipt in my mind.
I'm confident that this question is coming up
Yeah.
everywhere, and that DOR, the DOR is going to have to give some guidance on whether they, in setting a tax rate, are they going to tell towns that just applied the money as grants? They're all going to find out in October or November when they're trying to set tax rates. No, you're going to go back to town meeting and spend it. So hopefully they'll come up with some, give some proactive advice on how to do that. In order to get us out of this fix, because I'm, at one level, if for whatever purpose, if because there's no free cash to give the trust, all we can get is a grant from ARPA funds, I'm willing to live with that, and I'll tell you why. Because we have a balance there that can be spent for higher than 80%. And if the ARPA funds are somehow limited to 80%, we can still be doing things for both above and below 80% for the coming year. The other way to do it might be to say for moderate income, to say instead of having not applicable, just to say, pending further guidelines adopted by ARPA guidelines adopted by the select board. Instead of having this moderate income be not applicable, somehow reference that, that it would be, our ability to spend in the moderate income category would be dependent upon the policy direction from the select board on.
So why don't we replace the NA then with simply to be determined?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Because the question of whether it goes through the budget, I assume has to be answered for any use of this. I mean, if it goes in the budget, then it's got to go through the town meeting approval of the budget.
Well, I think any use under the lost revenue.
Under lost revenue.
Yeah, under lost revenue. If you make a direct grant to something, then it's going to be, I think, subject to the 60/80 rules. I mean, I think we can't, I mean, this is a bigger issue than we can resolve in an appendix to these guidelines.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's fair, it's a good change suggested by Mike. We just put in, instead of ruling it out, we'll just say that moderate income in the ARPA category is to be determined. That's fair. I think it lets us go forward with a document there.
Keith, I
Okay.
apologize, but I have a 2:30 meeting that I need to.
Oh,
attend.
okay, very good. Thanks for spending
Thank you very much.
time with us. Thank
Hi,
you.
Carrie.
And the last thing
Keith,
that
just a housekeeping thing on the version that you have of this addendum that you've added, scroll back up a little bit.
okay.
Can you see under the notes and references that for it says definition of key terms such as ... the dot goes into the next line. On the one that Rich sent us, that right-hand margin bar is pulled out a little bit to keep all the dots on the side. There you go.
There you go. Okay.
Perfect.
And on some of those details, hold on, go back up if you can. Keith, can you, yeah. So to be consistent with the rest of the document, doesn't reference document need to be in the same
Want to
type,
bold it? Just bold
Yeah.
it?
the same type font as background, etc.?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, all that means is you need to bold it, I think.
Okay.
I mean, I just imported this directly from Keith's document.
Yeah, that's fine. And then under the housing trust, that first box there,
Yeah.
you know, that, and Keith, you probably quoted directly from, that's probably a direct quote, because
Yeah.
we're not consistent about chapter and section. Usually the chapter goes first and then the section. So was it there or somewhere else? Well, maybe it's down below. We're not consistent about,
Yay?
yeah.
Yeah, let me move
But if
down.
that was a direct quote.
Yeah, see, yeah, part of it was that I'll say I used the description of M period, G period, L period, chapter and section, although it could be.
Yeah, so-
it could be the same. It could be abbreviated down here. If we're okay with an abbreviation up here, capital C dot 44.
A space after 44 comma.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I didn't move my cursor high up.
wild cursor. There you go.
Okay, so we'll do the same thing down here. Put a
yeah, and then
period.
comprehensive permit on the left-hand column. Okay, sorry.
Period.
Period. Okay, and then on the left-hand column. let me look
Yep,
over
the
there.
comprehensive permit law.
Yep. Oh, yeah, over there, yeah, I took, I did a cut and paste that used the section things. I can put, I'll put S. Oh, it's chat, yeah, for formatting purpose, we put I think I was doing capital C. Let me look it over. Your faces are either on my right side, or I'm moving you from all of our little screens over to the other side so I can see the rest of it. So let's do sections. Okay. All right.
And 23 isn't underlined.
It's not, no, because it's a link to, this is actually a hyperlink
Oh,
there to take you to section 20.
okay.
All right, let's see what I've got here. See what other formatting changes. Now in the reference guide, I did want to just talk through the bills here at the end, because these are direct quotes
Okay, those two sections there, you've got sections and chapters reversed.
Yeah, here, what I did was, see, this right here is a quote.
Got it. And
And
the same
so
with,
the way it appears in the statute,
yeah, and the same with the one below. I got it.
same with the one below, yeah. So that if you clicked it, it would take you to that link. So that was why that appears that way. Okay, and I'm gonna see if I can, I'm gonna do something here to try to, I'll format it that this need not bleed onto the next page.
Yeah.
But,
And then back up to ARPA if we may.
yeah,
So, the question about land, ARPA for land
yes.
purchase. Are we going to assume that that's included in our definition here or not?
I would, yes, that we can add, the note or reference, we can add information about, including land. I could put in a reference to the section on purchasing for land. Let me see if I have the MAPC. Here's the briefing that MAPC did. Let me find it.
So the public hearing for the select board for the affordable housing appropriation, I think comes up at the end of February,
Mhm.
which is soon. And so that's going to be an interesting presentation.
It's the 24th. Yeah, yeah. How would the selectmen coming?
Or, no, actually, it's going to FinCom. So it'll be probably around the 17th, if that's a Thursday of March. But even so, that'll be here before you know it if we don't have some clarity on all this.
So the select board, who's here? Whose hearing is it?
At FinCom, it's going to FinCom because it's money involved.
Okay. And that's the select board
We'll present that, yeah.
presenting that, okay. Yeah, they could certainly have a shorter visit on that topic by just saying we're giving the trust ARPA funds this year, so we won't need a town meeting appropriation, but
Yeah.
don't know that they meet between, I don't think the select board meets between now and next Thursday. Do they? I mean, Monday's a
We do.
holiday.
No, it's in March that the FinCom.
In March. Okay, I'm sorry, I was thinking February. Okay, yeah, and so that works well. I mean, if it's March 17th that discussion occurs, we will have met with the select board on March 7th and hopefully can work out all of the things that we need to get clarity on. Let's see. I'd be happy to give a, I can't find it right now looking through these regs, but I'd be happy to add some language that talks about acquisition of land.
With the exception of that item for further exploration,
Mhm.
can we vote this, or do you want to wait for next week, Keith? I mean, you've made all the changes in it that I think everybody needed. This is kind of the one open issue.
Yeah,
And it's beyond us to resolve, sort of how the town's going to handle ARPA.
oh, yeah, I found the, I found the reference now. It says it won't be a quote of the reg, but what MAPC wrote is both of those programs, the National Housing Trust and the Home Program, both programs indicate that the funds can be used to fund site acquisition, improvement, and demolition, among other activities. So why don't I add that in here, just so that that's a, and then I'll put note. The HFT and home websites both indicate or websites indicate both programs can be used to fund site acquisition, improvement, and do we, I don't know if we need to put in demolition. It's only gonna
Right.
cause bad feelings, and to fund site acquisition and improvement among other activities. How about that?
So are the both programs saying that ARPA funds can be used to fund the site acquisition and improvement? Or
Well,
that-
it's ARPA that's saying that if it's eligible under the HTF or the home, then they are deemed to be ARPA eligible.
Okay,
So that's why I'm referencing back
okay.
that those two programs say that
Yeah.
that these uses are.
But then you would have to create housing on those sites that meet the criteria. The AMI criteria, presumably.
Right. Yeah, this gets to the question of can we use the land could we use the ARPA funds to acquire land? And yes, we can, and here's a way to just put a note in to send that message.
Hmm.
Why don't I just say both? How about this? Both programs can be used to fund. Yeah. Okay, anything else about this document? I think to get to Rich's point, I think we'd be ready for a vote to, if we wanted to adopt these as preliminary, as interims, as our proposed set of interim guidelines. And
I'll move that the document as amended before us be adopted by the trust and submitted for approval to the select board.
that's a motion by Rich,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mike. Okay, and I'm just gonna write make sure I'm getting the adopt as amended. And submit to select board for approval under section 6, item 18.
Excellent.
May I add that? Okay, so that's the motion. And the second, is there further discussion? All right, so we will take a, I'm gonna try to figure out how, let me first figure out how to get out.
Just be sure you save everything we did, Keith.
Yeah,
that's the
gee,
important thing.
yeah, I don't even want to mention the first time I had a staff member dealing with a computer and they worked all day long and didn't press save. And they worked again the next day. And it was very painful, but for all
Can you
of
just
us.
go up to file?
Not in, this was back in the day. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out where to get. Okay, here we are. There we go. So I'm trying to find the unsave. Or the unshare. How do I unshare? I don't want to share anything. I want to
Should be a
go.
button down the bottom.
Stop
Yeah,
screen
yeah,
sharing.
trouble is I can't see the bottom of my screen anymore. All right, well,
Okay, says share screen.
yeah, I
Yes.
don't. Yeah, unfortunately, let's see, hide thumbnail. I'm looking for the icon that lets me maximize the screen, but I'm not finding it.
And just hit escape.
Escape, okay. Nope, that didn't work. Well,
Hold your ID button down for 3 seconds.
Which one?
Your ID button.
I wonder what that is.
Oh,
Stop, okay, there it is. Stop share. All right. Phew. We were stuck in share in the world of share. So, all right, we made it out. All right, and we were in mid-motion. Had a motion and a second, and further discussion. All right, so let's take a roll call vote on the motion. Linda,
aye.
Mike,
I,
Rich,
Aye.
and Keith, aye. And Carrie had departed the meeting, so that is unanimous vote, 4-0. Well done, people. Thank you so much for all of this this great work. It's 2:50 right now. There are other items on the agenda, but I don't have any updates on sources of the other items are sources of trust funds, update on the legislation. There's nothing new that since our meeting last Thursday, when we heard that our Concord's bills were reported out favorably, and the statewide bill has been extended to May 9th. So
Only additional item, Keith, is that the realtors have come out of the woodwork and sent a letter, as we expected,
yeah,
a letter to the leadership opposing both the statewide bill and all the home rules.
yeah. Well, we've no surprise there except the timing, but the rest of us had to get our information, our testimony in earlier. But thank you, thanks for that. We talked a lot about ARPA funds, and I'm glad that we did. And I think that's all for sources of funds. Use of funds, Assabet River Bluff project. I don't have any new information on that. If a purchase and sales agreement has been negotiated or signed, I'm not aware of it, so I'm assuming not, unless anyone.
I haven't heard.
Yeah. Okay, so that takes us to public comment. And I don't know if we have any comments to be made. All right. Our next meeting was scheduled for next Thursday, which is the date, which is when we gave ourselves to complete our assignment, which we've completed today. So
So for me, there's two things that
Yeah.
would necessitate another meeting. And
Mhm.
one would be if in the short order, we learn from Carrie some new information here about ARPA.
Okay,
Or direction she wants to go. And the second for me would be if we do get an update from Assabet River Bluff, that would be helpful to know.
okay.
Those
Would we,
Those
would
would
we,
be the two pressing things.
okay, so that would we say that if we don't hear about such things by Tuesday, that I don't post a meeting for next Thursday, or should I go ahead and post one and that we cancel it if we don't hear something new?
I defer to the established protocol on that. I don't know what town committees do when they aren't sure they need to meet or not.
I think the protocol anyway is to schedule a meeting, and then if we don't need to meet, we can cancel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's do that. Let's plan to meet on the 17th, and I will reach out to Carrie about ARPA, and I will reach out to Lee and Liz about the Assabet River Bluff. And if neither has anything to report that we need to act on, that we won't meet. I won't post a meeting, but if we do, then we will.
So in the interim, will we get the final copy of everything we agreed to today?
You will get it as soon as I press send following our meeting, because I've made all the edits as we go, so I can just email the document out to everyone.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
very much.
much.
And Rich, thank you. That was a lot of back and forth. Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, Rich. That's great.
Very good. And since the motion is to forward it to is to submit it to the select board, I think what I may do, I may just take a little bit of time preparing a cover letter and then get it out to them in the next day or so. But I'll get the document out to everyone here on this call right away and get it to and plan to submit it to the select board by tomorrow with a cover.
The only downside I see to sending it early,
Yeah.
Keith. I think it's unlikely, but
Yeah.
that Carrie would come back with some clarity on how she's going to proceed here soon. But she
Yeah,
did,
yeah, that's a point. That's a point well taken. I will consult with Carrie first on the ARPA so that and then plan to get the document out to the select board after hearing back from Carrie.
just in case we had to make a.
Yeah, I'm fine with that because
revisit, yeah.
material. Yeah. Okay, so all right, so I will get this document out to all of our members right away, and we will plan to submit it to the select board after I've consulted with the interim town manager. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh.
Motion by Mike, second by Rich, and let's do a roll call vote. Linda?
Thank you, everyone.
And that's an aye. And aye from Linda. Mike? Mike is
Aye.
aye. Rich?
Aye, and thank you for being the scribe on this last round.
Thank you for all the prior rounds. And Keith, aye. So we are adjourned at 2:56 p.m. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
and thanks
everybody.
for joining us again, Lois. Nice to see you. Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you.